Hi everyone, it's Judy here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before I get into this video, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who has subscribed so far to my channel and every single person who comments. I really appreciate the engagement that you have here on my videos, and it just makes me really happy. So I just want to make sure that I'm saying thank you and that you know just how much I appreciate every single one of you. So today I want to talk about how to get rid of fungus gnats. Almost every other question that I see on Facebook groups, on plant Facebook groups, is how do I get rid of fungus gnats? What do I do with them? Like, they are making my life miserable. They're really frustrating. You're eating dinner and you have one fly up your nose, or you're sleeping in bed and you can feel this little things around your face, or it's just in the peripheral vision. You just want to slap it and you just want to kill it. They're just flying everywhere, and they can become very disruptive to our lives and very disruptive to the life of our plants. The infestation of fungus gnats can grow very quickly, and so in today's video I want to talk to you about how to get rid of fungus gnats, my personal experience with them, and how I got rid of them. So basically what fungus gnats are those little tiny black flies that buzz around your, not buzz, but that fly around your plants. Like, for example, if you lift the leaves and you disturb the soil a little bit, or when you water your plants you see little black flies come out of the soil, those are fungus gnats. Sometimes you can see them crawling over the surface of your soil or just hovering around in the air, and it's just a little black cloud of dismay and despair and doom. I describe them like this because I once had them become such a problem to the extent that they were really getting to me and really frustrating me. And so I was in a journey to completely obliterate them from my collection. So basically what fungus gnats are those tiny little black flies. They're quite similar to fruit flies, and they're insects that live off rotting organic materials within your soil. They are most at home in moist areas, so that would be in spaces where you have vessels of water or fruit or vegetables sitting out on your bench, and that also includes the soil we have in our plants. So when we water our plants, the moist soil in our plants is the ideal place for fungus gnats to breed and to grow and to multiply. I want to talk about two ways to get rid of fungus gnats. One is a preventative measure, and the other is just how to get rid of them completely. So preventative measures, the first thing that I would recommend is to check plants when you're purchasing them. So basically when you find a plant in a shop that you like, pick up the pot. If it's really super heavy and waterlogged, chances are that plant has been watered and is almost to the point of being overwatered, whether they're in a nursery or Bunnings or wherever you're purchasing them from. Just make sure that the soil doesn't already have any existing fungus gnats within it. So you pick it up and you have a look. If you can't see any to the naked eye, just maybe like squeeze the pot like this, and often that'll bring them up to the surface of the soil and you see them fly out. I would say, unless you are comfortable with the treatment of getting rid of fungus gnats already, if you're beginning out in plant, I would personally put that plant back and just not even bother with it, because fungus gnats can get out of hand really super quickly. So yeah, that's the number one tip, is to check the plants, make sure that they don't already have any existing fungus gnats within the soil. Number two is let the soil dry out between waterings. Because fungus gnats love to lay their eggs in moist soil, they thrive in that environment, always make sure that you're letting the soil dry out between waterings. It may be a bit more of a struggle to get rid of fungus gnats from plants that like to have their soil stay quite moist, like alocasias or calatheas. So it may take a bit more time with those plants to get rid of the fungus gnats altogether, but that is my number one tip, is to let the soil dry out between waterings, and also make sure that your soil mixture is well draining. Fungus gnats can't lay eggs in soil that is dry. Their eggs won't survive in that. So making sure that your soil is well draining will keep your soil from staying too moist for too long, in which the fungus gnats can breed and grow and lay their eggs. A way where you'd be able to tell whether or not your soil is well draining is if you water when you water your plant and the water just sits on the top of your soil and just very, very slowly drains through, chances are your soil mixture isn't well draining. Ways that you can fix that is that when you're creating your soil mixture, you can add things to help with drainage. Some of these things are pumice, perlite, activated charcoal, orchid bark, propagation sand, even sphagnum moss, and there's a whole heap of other things that you can add to your soil mixture to help it be more well draining. Another thing you could do is to regularly aerate the top layer of your soil. So often if you pick up a plant and you feel the top layer of the soil, if it's really hard and compacted, chances are your soil isn't very well aerated. So you can either get your finger or a chopstick or a fork and just loosen up the top layer of the soil, and that'll provide more air and drainage to your plant. But I would recommend adding things to that soil to help it be more well draining. Other things you could do is to top dress your plant. Top dress means to place your material of choice on the top layer of the soil up to the edges of the pot. I don't personally do this, but let me just try and make an example here. So some things that you could use to top dress your soil are decorative pebbles, leca balls, sphagnum moss, sand, or diatomaceous earth. So what you would do with your top dressing of choice is to just place it on the top layer of the soil up to the edges of the pot. What this top dressing method does is it helps keep gnats from laying their eggs in the top layer of the soil because they can't even get in through sand or pebbles. They can't get through that top layer. So that really helps prevent gnats from laying their eggs in there. The second you realize you have gnats, if you see one, chances are you already have hundreds of eggs laid in your soil somewhere in one of your plants. If you see them, you've got them. So I would recommend really just getting on it and nipping it in the bud before they get any worse in your collection. If you let it go, even if you just let it go within 2 weeks, I guarantee you're gonna have more of a problem than you really want. It's really important to get on the prevention and/slash cure right from the beginning, because fungus gnats are really a pest that can ruin your joy, they can ruin your day, and they can get out of control very, very quickly, and eventually left unattended, they can also be very, very detrimental to the life of your plants. Like I said before, adult fungus gnats can lay hundreds of eggs at a time. So I would recommend, number one, get to killing them right away. I know doing this isn't gonna really do much in the grand scheme of things, but if you really think about it, one single less adult fungus gnat means 100 less eggs laid that day in any one of your plants. So if you see one, get it, slap it, kill it, just get on it. Number two, you could use sticky traps to trap the adult fungus gnat. So these are what I use. You can get these from Bunnings or Home Hardware. I'm gonna leave what I found off Amazon linked in the description box down below if you wanna go check those out and get some for yourself. What these sticky traps do is that they trap the adults, and once they've got the adults, they're not gonna go ahead and lay more eggs in your soil. So it kind of nips it in the bud. Another method is that you could make a mixture of vinegar, honey, dish soap, and sometimes I've even seen people use like really cheap, nasty whiskey. Make a solution of that, just like mix it all together and put it in a bowl and put it next to your plants. What this does is that it's more of a passive way of attracting the adult fungus gnats, and they'll just land in the bowl and they'll drown, and that's another way of trapping them and keeping them from spreading around their eggs, their offspring in your other plants. That's a really good natural way to get rid of fungus gnats. Another method I've seen is some people will sprinkle cinnamon on the top layer of their soil. Apparently fungus gnats don't like cinnamon. I've tried this. Personally, I didn't really see much of a result from that method, but I've heard that people have found it to be quite effective as well. For me, the most effective way to get rid of fungus gnats is to target the larvae in the soil. Like, killing the adults helps, but really getting the larvae before they reach the adult stage is always the best way, because as soon as they reach adult stage, they're gonna continue on laying eggs. So getting them before they become adults is key. Having too many larvae in your plant, living in your plant, can become really detrimental to your plant because they will eventually start feeding on the plant itself. Once they consumed all the organic materials within your soil, then they're gonna start feeding on the roots of your plant, and that's really not gonna end it very well for your plant. So target the larvae. To get rid of the larvae, I personally have used a solution of neem oil and water. What I do with this is I mix up the neem oil with the water, or you can buy a ready-made solution. If you are wanting to completely drench through your plants, I would recommend buying a concentrate solution of neem oil and then mixing it yourself, because doing it this way can become a really expensive way of getting rid of larvae in your soil. So I would recommend buying a concentrate and mixing it with water yourself. So what I do is that once I've watered it, like allow the water to seep through and rinse out the soil and just kind of like warm up the soil and bring a bit more aeration and life to it, then I'll go in with my solution of neem oil and water and just completely drench the plant around the roots and the soil, everything. Then I let it drain through. What this does is the oil then coats the larvae and it suffocates them, and then they die. The thought of which actually brings me a lot of joy. Another thing that I personally have used is pyrethrum spray. Now, this is what I use. You can also buy this in a concentrate and mix that one up yourself. So this is pyrethrum long life insect spray. This one I find is really super effective in killing the adults upon like contact. So what you would do is, again, wet your soil like you normally would when you're watering, and then go in with a really good spray of this on the surface of the soil. And I've seen this actually kill adult gnats upon contact. So pyrethrum spray is also really super effective. And another method I've seen used is, I personally haven't used this because neem oil seemed to work really well for me, but I've seen other people mix a solution of hydrogen peroxide with water, and then again, once you've watered your plant like normal watering routine, then go in with your hydrogen peroxide, completely flush out the soil with your hydrogen peroxide and water solution. And I've heard that to be really super effective in killing the larvae in the soil. I've heard people say that it completely killed the larvae and the gnats didn't come back once they've done that method. What I personally found the most effective for me to get rid of fungus gnats was to go in with my neem oil solution like I spoke about before, and then let the soil completely dry out before going again and watering my plant. Because larvae really thrive in a moist environment, allowing the soil to dry out will kill the larvae and just completely cut the life cycle of the fungus gnats from the get-go. Fungus gnats have a 2-week lifespan, more or less. So the adult fungus gnat will lay their egg in the soil. The egg will hatch into larvae, and the larvae will then develop into an adult fungus gnat. So the 2-week lifespan is generally the timeline of when you're going to want to do these killing methods of the fungus gnats. So for example, once I've done my neem oil solution, I would do it again after another 2 weeks to make sure that I haven't missed killing any of the larvae, any of the adult gnats, all of it. I hope that makes sense. I've also heard that using mosquito bits either on the top layer of your soil or mixing it within your soil mix is really helpful in killing fungus gnats. I personally haven't used this method, but I've heard that it can be really helpful. There's a bacteria within the mosquito bits. It's like little tiny rocks or little tiny pebbles that you mix in your soil or top dress the soil with, and that kills the larvae. Another method you could do to get rid of larvae within your soil is you could scoop out the top 1 to 2 inches of your soil, because I've heard it's popular belief that fungus gnats will lay their eggs within the top 1 to 2 inches of soil, but I've also heard it say it could be 2 to 4 inches of soil. So if you can get in there and you're just really desperate to get rid of them, do what you can with your plant without disturbing the roots too much. So take out the top 1 to 2 or 2 to 4 inches of soil from your plant, get rid of that soil. I wouldn't use it in another plant, because if that's infested with larvae, you are not going to want to use that soil for anything else. Just throw it out and get rid of it completely. And then you replace that soil with fresh soil. When you buy your potting soil from Bunnings or wherever you buy your potting soil from, just make sure that's not already infested with larvae or fungus fungus gnats. I've heard stories where people have bought potting mix and it already has fungus gnats within it, and then it just completely ruins their plant collection because they've potted up their plants with soil that already has larvae in it. So what you could do is either make sure that the soil is clean, doesn't have any larvae in it, or you could go ahead and sterilize your soil. Now, how you sterilize your soil is you place it in like an oven or a baking dish, or you could microwave your soil. What this does is it completely kills any larvae that might be alive in that soil, and it just kills them dead. That method of sterilization I've heard can be quite effective, but also make sure that your soil is cold before you go ahead and use it in your plants, because you're not going to want to like cook the roots of your plants. Just make sure it's cold or come back to room temperature before you use it. And then when you store your soil, make sure it's in an airtight container so that fungus gnats can't get in there and start their whole life cycle of planting eggs and larvae all over again. I personally use the Osmocote indoor plant soil. I just get it from Bunnings. I have never had any issues with finding fungus gnats or larvae within that soil, and it just goes really well. I use it for all my plants, and it's actually a really good well-draining soil as well. So if you can get your hands on that, I would recommend using the Osmocote indoor plant soil mix. Now, just to recap, the most effective way I personally had to getting rid of fungus gnats within my collection is that solution of neem oil and water, and just completely flushing out my plant with it and then letting the soil dry out between waterings, and also making sure that any new plants that I bring into my home don't have fungus gnats in them. I still get them from time to time. I still see them flying around here and there sometimes, but I always make sure that I nip it in the bud and just get on top of it and find out which plant it is that has been infected with these gnats, and just treat that plant as soon as I know it's got gnats in it. So that's basically how to get rid of fungus gnats. I know they can be really super frustrating to the point of where you just want to scream and pull your hair out. I know they can be so incredibly frustrating, but believe me, it's possible to get rid of them. I would just really encourage you to get on top of it before it gets out of hand. I've seen on Facebook group pages photos of infestations that are way out of hand, and when it comes to that point, you can just the soil itself looks like it's moving. When it's come to that point, I would personally recommend just changing out the soil of your plant altogether, getting rid of that soil and replacing it with brand new fresh soil, and making sure that you're not overwatering your plant, which can attract fungus gnats to continue breeding within that soil. So it's just a matter of maintenance and keeping an eye on your plants and making sure that these fungus gnats don't get a foothold in your plants. That's my tips and tricks on how to get rid of fungus gnats. Don't be disheartened. It can be done. You can get rid of them. It may seem like a really tough journey right now, but believe me, you can get rid of them. I know you can, because I did. I hope it was helpful and informational to you guys. If you have any other ways that you have been able to get rid of fungus gnats that I didn't mention in this video, I know that so many people would be grateful to hear your experience and your story. I would love for you to leave your experience in the comments down below, and I know a lot of people will appreciate that as well. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful and informative. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!